All right. So we are starting with the Crafton Borough budget workshop session at 6:30. So let me share my screen here. And we only have a couple things left to go over.
So Jim, are we going to review where we left off last time?
We can, yeah.
Okay. And then maybe revisit some of the things that we talked about?
Sure.
Okay. Or that still needed thoughts?
I never knew you could do that. All right. All right. Okay. So I'll go over a few of the things that we did last time. So the last time we went over community activities, and it was approved that we will continue to spend $15,000, same as last year, on fireworks. And I did, to the good point of Mr. Hogue, am I saying that right? Hof. Okay, Mr. Hof. We did find out that fireworks display that was on the other side of the parking lot was a non-commissioned firework display. So
it was not Ingram?
It was not Ingram, and it was a group of people that apparently put on a fairly large display every year since COVID started, because of COVID. When COVID was canceled, that first year, when they canceled the fireworks the first year because of COVID, they got together and put on a fairly large.
That would be illegal now, right?
Yes. If it happens in Crafton, but I actually don't think it's happening in Crafton.
But it's
So,
illegal anywhere.
Yes,
It's still illegal.
yes, yes.
The state code changed if you weren't around.
Yeah. So
State code.
So we did look into that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's probably a lot.
Look how much ours is.
Yeah.
If they confused it for municipal.
Oh, yeah, that's something.
Oh, and it was even thought that it was bigger than ours, I think was the comment I heard. So, anyway. So, yeah, so we did look into it, and and it's not something that we can work with them on, because they actually do their fireworks display and this was something that was decided decades ago. I think in September, October, they do a kind of a fall, or they do Ingram days. Right. And they do their fireworks during Ingram days. So that's an update there. This was the police budget. There were no real changes, I don't think, on this budget, although the chief did, what's that?
That's the Thornburg.
Oh, right. Well, no, it's the Thornburg and the police budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And I do owe John some details on that I have not gotten him yet, so that he can reach out to the council president over there. And then the chief did ask me for one additional thing that I'm adding to the budget. It was minor. It was $2,000 to $3,000. I think it was related to it's slipping my mind now what it was related to, but I will add it and update everybody when I do. The public works budget, I don't think there were any adjustments. I'm not moving forward with the front loader unless I can work out some serious sharing options with neighbors like Carnegie. So that is in limbo right now. The library, we did agree tentatively to give them that $2,500 increase this year. And I'm also working with them to see if we can get some of our other communities to recognize them as their formal library. And we're in talks with working that out with some of the other municipalities. So that will bring more funding to the library if we can manage that. And then we did approve those other two things on the agenda there for them. For municipal properties, we went through all of this. Most of this, I think all of this was agreed to. And that total budget is at 119,000.
So, excuse me,
Yep.
Jim, have we heard from the county yet about anything they're
We have
looking
not.
for?
We have not, and I need to ping them and ping the magistrate and see what's going on with that, just to make
Right,
sure.
I was talking with him the other day, and it's totally in the county's hands at this point.
Okay, yeah, I have not heard from them, so I will. I talked to him probably 2 weeks ago. Do you know how long ago you talked to him?
Less than a week,
Okay, well then
because I pinged him on the same thing, and
okay.
he says, It's them.
Okay, okay. Yeah, he was told he was definitely not allowed to negotiate on their behalf. So, moving forward, we talked about this as well. We have sent an MOU to the Crafton Performing Arts Group, who has a very strong feelings about the stage. So we want to make sure that we have an agreement there before we make any moves or invest any more into that stage. And so that's in that portion is in limbo right now, and they will be responding to my draft MOU at the end of the month. And I did review that MOU with the communications committee. So they're aware of what it says at this point. So we will, when I get feedback, I will let you know. And then now moving on to the portions of the budget that we have not discussed. And that was the two biggest portions of the budget. And that is the sewer fund, which is its own fund, and then the bond fund, which is also its own fund. So starting with the sewer fund, most of the things in the sewer fund are perfunctory. They're the bill collection, the expense paid to Alcosan. But one of the biggest chunks of that budget and the portion that I have laid out here is the deferred maintenance and the ongoing maintenance of the sewer system. We have currently about $870,000 in deferred maintenance repairs, and not all of them are long-time deferred. Some of them are just from the last year or two, but there are $645,000 worth of repairs that were prior to the last 2 years. And those are the ones that we are focused on addressing first, because those are of the greatest concern when it comes to getting worse. A few of those are from 2016. So we are currently in the process of getting all those or looking into all those videos. And Larry, the borough engineer, is going to assess where each one of those projects are from a risk standpoint based on his knowledge. And then we'll address which of these we're going to do. But we did budget. I currently have budgeted $500,000 for deferred maintenance, which is $100,000 more than what was budgeted the year before. And that is really my goal of trying to catch up with these repairs and hopefully get to a point where we're only doing repairs from the last year or two, as opposed to looking back 5 or 6 or 8 years at this point.
So Jim, do we know where these are? And can we bring that to the engineer meeting or something?
Yeah, I can bring the individual repairs to the, but it is without looking at, it won't be very informative because without looking at the videos, it's just like 18 feet from this corner is a repair that is underground that you would never, never see. But I do have a breakdown of what all those are. And we can absolutely look at those in detail.
I think aligning it with our paving project and also Broadhead and everything else. So if it happens to be like on Park Street, well, we know we're going to be tearing that up, so we might delay it. Whereas if it's on a street that maybe needs paved or is a brick street, it might be better to understand that to pinpoint.
Yep.
Right. And also, as you mentioned, that there's the implication that most or all of these would be above ground, but there's quite a number of them that wouldn't disturb the street, all the liner ones and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but sometimes, as we've learned, if
you let them go too long, yes.
And they become the whole street repair and everything else.
Yep, I'll take note of that, and we can look at that at the next engineering meeting. But I think overall that budget is the right number for now. And then if we still need to budget that much next year, I think that might be enough to get us caught up between those 2 years.
And this is all just for next year?
No, this is the total list of repairs. And we will have, I don't know, you might have been just walking in, but we are, I'm asking Larry to go in and look at all the videos and decide and see if we can work through and figure out which ones are at most risk of getting worse. Some of the, we video 10% of the borough every year. And from those videoing of those lines is how we decide what needs to be done or what is, of more importance. And some things like, for example, that you'll see that Duncan manhole to manhole liner was taken off because when they were doing the research for looking at C20, the C20 and trying to get our consent order degree. So basically the C20 is the area by the shopping center. It's the only area that we really haven't done any major or don't have any planned major projects for that area. And one reason for that is that it's a difficult area. It's relatively flat. It's hard to pull big areas of sewer stormwater and pull it out of the system. So they've been investigating things, and one of the investigations turned up that the Duncan, right by Duncan Street, there's a sewer that goes through a bunch of backyards, and it looked like it was going to be something that we were going to use to send water down to the creek as a bypass, but it turns out that it actually has too much water going in it already. It's a large system, but it's not going to be useful for this process. So it doesn't, and it's already in decent shape. We were only going to line it because we were going to send additional flow down it. But now that we're not considering that for additional flow, it saves us $108,000 repair. So that should not be an issue moving forward. But just to give you an idea of, what those are. And you can see I have them just so I can explain what each of these different things are. So a manhole to manhole repair is when they take a large section, could be a couple hundred, could be 100 feet, could be, a larger system. It's not, they can go into the manhole and they put essentially a fluid in, and they put a balloon and they have a balloon blow up, and that fluid then pushes against the outsides of the pipe and essentially hardens and forms a brand new pipe. So you're basically lining the pipe completely with a new material, thus creating a new, stronger, better pipe. And that is a good, basically you have to do that before the pipe collapses. Once the pipe collapses, now it becomes a much more expensive thing. And now you have a dig repair. That's the top thing on the right, you'll see. And dig repairs are obviously the one that you want to do the least, because now you're having to excavate, and excavation is always going to be more expensive. And then you have to replace the pipes as a whole.
So
yeah.
I am not sure that I'm understanding this list. When I see these numbers,
Yeah.
they add up to, well more than $1 million. And if I
Yeah.
understand what you're talking about, the 500,000 is geared towards hitting some of these, and you're saying next year, so that really we have about, 2.5 is for all the things we have to do anyway.
No, I think
Okay, then
let me clarify.
I'm not understanding.
No, that's fine. This $870,000 is all of them combined.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get
so-
that.
No.
Oh,
And I'm sorry. Yep. And I'm sorry that wasn't clear.
okay.
Yep. So the total old repairs is 645. The total new repairs is 108. And the total Duncan repairs, separated out because there's so many down there, is 128. So these combined add up to this.
Okay, and then the dig repairs, the
Are-
spot liner.
Just a different way to lay out. So this has a dig repair, this has a dig repair.
Oh,
Sorry for
okay.
making it
It's
way.
very confusing.
Yes, I realize that.
I
And
didn't,
All right.
I did not focus group test this slide, so.
Okay. I'll work with you on this slide,
Yeah.
Jim. So, okay,
I
so basically
apologize.
what we're saying is we have a total of about 870,000 of old repairs.
Correct.
And 500,000 of the 2 million, let's call it 3 million,
3 million, yeah.
3 million is for addressing half of these, or a little more than half of these this
Exactly.
year. And the rest of that, so the 2.5
Yep.
is everything else that we do, what we have to pay to Alcosan, all the other things that we do as
Exactly.
part of the sewer fund.
Exactly.
Okay,
Thank you for helping me clarify that.
all right.
Okay, yeah, I was doing that on my own to help clarify. So you can see that we do have the most expensive repairs are the dig repairs. And even though there probably aren't as many of them, but totaling them up because you're excavating, it just is a much more expensive process. The
But-
spot, yeah,
But also okay, so they're ones that are bad enough that we have to dig, but given what we've learned from Johnson, that some of this liner stuff may actually be more critical to do because it'll keep us from spending more money later.
that's exactly right. If something
Okay.
is already at a dig level and it's not negatively affecting the system yet, maybe we don't have to do that yet. Maybe we do the manhole to manhole, but that's exactly what I'm going to have them go through and analyze. And Rick and I talked about it a little bit, but really just for the budgeting idea to make sure that we captured enough of the really bad ones to make sure that we're done. For example, the Duncan repairs dig, most of that is one repair. There is a 42-inch pipe that which is a monstrous sewer pipe that needs to be repaired. And I think that one alone is estimated to cost $102,000 or somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah. So,
Kirsten?
So how do we, if we have $870,000 of deferred maintenance costs here and we're budgeting 500,000, have we identified yet which ones are going to be the target, or is that going to be on the agenda of upcoming engineering meetings?
For the engineering meeting,
yeah,
and that's what I wrote down for the engineering meeting, then we'll bring it here to talk about where these are and see if we have paving coming up or anything else that would.
yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that as soon as I get Larry set up on GIS, we have all these videos in GIS. And I'm going to have him go through and we're going to look at them and we're going to figure out a prioritization. Then we'll bring it to the engineering committee. And just as John said, to coordinate with any of the other work that's being done to make sure that we're, two birds with one stone if possible. So.
We do a video presentation of each one as we present.
Sure. I mean, if you guys want to sit through rolling down a pipe and looking at it.
Is this
But-
going to be public at any point?
Well, it's public now.
But I mean, for anyone who's not attending at this meeting, is it going to be, because I'm noticing that I fully understand that the spotliners are more cost effective
Mhm.
than having to dig. But if we just look at these numbers.
Yep.
The dig numbers are actually lower. So I would assume that those are probably smaller projects than some of the manhole liners, but I think it's very hard to follow for someone who's not knowing where these are coming from and not familiar with the details. It
Right, this
Doesn't the
slide
numbers for the
really,
dig
yeah,
projects are lower.
this slide really needs to be redone.
Yeah, I should have
and
just
then added-
honestly I honestly should have just shared the Excel file with all the prices and list, but I didn't. I started this as trying to make it easier, but clearly I didn't achieve that goal. But yeah, we at the next meeting, well, we're having I don't know I think we have an engineering meeting before the next meeting.
Yeah. We should,
We do, yeah.
always, yeah.
Okay, well, there's some weeks that it doesn't happen that way. Because
it
if you
depends on the
have,
timing of Thursdays and Tuesdays.
I think we changed it though. Didn't we change that one?
we might, I don't recall, but I can look, actually, give me 1 second. To double check. And then we can discuss exactly which ones we're going to do
Yeah, we moved it up to the 7th.
to the 7th.
Yeah.
Okay,
So because of that reason.
right, okay, great. Well, I didn't move it on my calendar, so. No, let me make sure that. I will check tomorrow. That would be on November 7th. And I think that was one of the weeks because that is the first Tuesday and it's supposed to be on the second Tuesday, which is why
I moved mine. I think it was me who moved it, but I think you still have.
Yeah,
to-
I think-
you have to
yep.
move all of us.
I got that note now so that will happen. All right. Lots of good conversation about that. And we can provide all that information at the next meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to the budget. This is more prioritizing where the work gets done as opposed to the overall amount. But, all right. Any other questions before I skip to the next one? Okay. So the next thing is the bond budget, and the for the bond funds. These are all of the projects that are scheduled that are either starting work right now or will be starting work soon. I have and this is going to be we can budget what's here, but we definitely need to review this at the engineering committee and then bring it back to council for specific details, because we are, I know now that the public works building is actually going to be significantly more than that. That does not cover any of the grounds work of getting it set up for access to vehicles and whatnot. This is just finishing the shell of the vehicle, the shell of the building, insulating it and bringing utilities to the building. So I've become aware of additional costs that I was not aware of before. Same goes for the stairs. I know that those have come back significantly more expensive than we initially thought. We did put the one out which will be done this year, which is the $34,000, but we are continuing to look at and getting bids back for the other one. So that number actually might go down depending on which ones we accept and which ones we don't, because I know there's a desire to keep it around the grant funding, which is $500,000. But I just put that number there because if we did all of them, I would assume it would come in around that cost. And then by all of them, I mean the 5, not including the Emerson stairs that we removed. So I just want to update everybody with that. Regarding the pool bathhouse, we did learn on Monday of this week that there are some repairs, that there's going to be some change orders, because we learned that the steel poles that are supporting the roof, many of them have rusted out. So we are not sure what that will involve, but we are waiting for the structural engineer to do some work on that and look into it. Apparently, I don't know that anybody was aware of this, but or at least not anybody that I've spoken with. It was originally a pavilion. That was not built as a regular building. It was actually built completely open throughout the middle with just steel poles holding up the roof and no walls. And when they added the walls, instead of doing a tongue and groove kind of, where you stagger the blocks to add support, the blocks are just stacked vertically.
Straight.
Yep. So they do not have nearly the amount of strength that they should naturally have.
Right.
And so we are looking into can we pull out part of them and put part back, or do we have to pull the whole back wall out the side by the pool? And so we are navigating that situation now. Were you going to ask?
The steel beams, were those encased in the wall?
Yes,
So that's why it missed the earlier inspection?
correct. Yep. It was that's why they stacked them vertically, so that they didn't have to cut a bunch of blocks.
That makes sense.
So they would squeeze them in, and they mortared them into the system. And that's actually why the wall started to break, because the rust in it was busting out and expanded in the wall and broke the wall open. So we're waiting to hear back on what that's going to cost. The Linwood and Noble Park, that is, we have it budgeted at $455,000. That is, we've received grant money in the amount of $250,000. We are not required to provide more than, I think, a 10 or 15% match. So we could decide just to do one of the two parks at this point, and wait on more funding. But I have it budgeted currently for this amount. And if that changes, we can adjust it, in the next year. Broadhead is, fully funded at 6.2 million is the cost of that project. 6.25 million is the cost of that project, but we're assuming that we're only actually going to be able to do about 4 million of that work next year, just on the volume of the work that is needed in that project.
So Jim, these are not just the bond fund. This is grants and everything is inside here.
Yeah,
These are more of
well,
a
this
project.
this is the project budget. Yeah, I should
Okay,
say the
it's
project.
not the bond fund, because
Yeah.
a lot of this is grant.
Yeah, and most of this has been funded by grant funds. In fact, all of it's
So-
been funded by
So
grant.
these
So
are things we
basically,
might be
this
like
is a-
fronting from the bond,
Yeah.
but most of this, we're not paying for at the end
Yeah.
of the
Right.
day, or we're
That's
paying
correct.
only a fraction.
Right. So this is another slide that we should
Nice.
work on
Yep, okay,
so that we're clearly showing how
Where the
much
money
we
is
have
coming
grant,
from.
yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
yep, yeah, I can do that. I can add that. And then the last one is one that was added to the bond fund. It has not been talked about in the engineering committee. And that is the Station Street wall. So for those of you that were, when we were talking about the paving, we actually had to skip paving the very last portion of Station Street when we did it, because the wall at the end of Station Street and it's at the end of your street. What division? Yeah, I think it's so right where Station and Division meet, there's a wall overlooking the busway that is collapsing. And it is our infrastructure, and we were not able to pave the last little bit of the road because we didn't want to put the heavy machinery that close to the wall. But it is going to require repairs, and I'd rather do it now before it falls on the busway and we have to pay for something else. So, and we're estimating that to cost about $150,000. We do not have grant funding for that one, but we can start looking for that.
That is owned by us. That's our
That is-
responsibility to
That
fix
is
and
owned by
maintain.
us. That is clearly on our property. Yep.
So before we move on,
Yes.
if it's all right, this old council member wants to just say a few things more about Public Works.
Mhm.
Not, I mean, it is what it is at this point.
Yep.
But you've heard me go on about this before, and it's just as you are going to be being on council in future years, I cannot emphasize enough to be really, really careful when someone comes and says, this is going to cost $500,000. Because that's where this thing started. And, you know, I've had, they've heard me go on and on every time this budget has gone up. And by the time we're through with this, I mean, we're joking Taj Mahal here, but we're going to have $1.5 million in this by the time what you just started talking about. No one ever talked about being able to get the equipment, you know, the access to get the equipment there. And it's not like our engineers, or for that matter, our smart previous, if certain people wanted that to go through and they got started and they got, you know, they got stuff in the ground, and then now we're all stuck with, are we going to just abandon it, or are we going to see it through?
Yep.
So it's just really a caution to everybody to just ask questions, and don't take it at face value.
Are we talking about the Public Works building?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, you know, it is what it is at this point. It's just, I want to come back around and say, take it as another lesson, like the Johnson Street, you know, is that we let that one go, but this one, certain people wanted it a certain way, and they got it in the ground, and now we're having to deal with the consequences to make it functional.
Yep. And I can talk about, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly the approach that we're taking now, is to look at it holistically and see what is happening. Because one thing that we're kind of stuck with right now is we do have a $200,000 grant that is for this, that it expired last year. We've gotten we're working on getting an extension for 200,000, but we will have to do some of that work if we can't get another extension by February. So, and we're looking at this point, just putting on the garage doors because that will allow them to at least secure the building and use that for some vehicle storage over this winter. But Larry and I have been looking at this. We have talked to Kevin Nadlin, who is the engineer in charge of this project at Gateway. But just to give you a couple of the issues to explain that, the doors are probably 2 to 4 feet taller than they needed to be. But we're stuck with that building at this point. They also they chose not to put insulation in the building, which costs about $30,000 to $40,000 when you do it as a package at the outset. But we have now budgeted $150,000. So 3 times as much or more to do to do spray foam insulation. We have since found out, Larry and I have figured out that that we might be able to get the original package of insulation, but it'll cost about $35,000 in labor from the company to do that, which is still far cheaper than the spray foam. So we're looking into that option, making sure that it has a similar R value. But we're also, I've had conversations with Greg Wozniak, who is a energy specialist. This is what he does. So we're looking at maybe cordoning off part of the building and keeping 2 different comfort zones, one for the vehicles in the ballpark of 50 degrees, 45 or 50 degrees at the coldest, and then doing the rest of the building in more of a human comfort level of 60, 65, 70 degrees. Depending on the time of year. And so we're trying to figure out ways that we can cut costs and do this as a whole.
Right.
Picture.
So did I catch what you're saying? So originally we quote had the doors because I think did they put doors on the old one or something?
Oh, yeah. So
And so when you're
yeah.
saying they're 3 or 4 feet too big, you want to explain that a little bit?
Sure. So the old building has 12-foot doors, and they bought new doors, assuming that when they would build this new building, that they'd be able to move those new doors to this building. However, they bought this building and have taller doors. They're 14-foot doors, which we don't have any piece of equipment that requires 14-foot doors, but we have 14-foot doors. And so now we cannot move those doors from the other that were purchased for the other building to the new building.
How did we not know that? Like,
I have no
that
idea.
would
We
be-
have engineers.
I'm not an engineer and I would know.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they've been working on this. How was
I mean,
that?
I remember when
not-
I was still on council, they approved, they told us that they were going to be able to be used on the new building. And that, so then council approved the purchase of the 2 new doors. And I mean,
This is all predated, right? And this
Oh,
was
it's all-
not, this
this
was
is all
inherited
before
by
all
this
of you
council.
guys.
This
You're
was
inheriting
before.
all
We did
this.
not
No.
have a say in this.
No, you did not.
The
But
Public
this is-
Works, we never even voted, so that
Right.
was.
It was, well, originally, yeah, not everyone on this council, but a couple of you were here when we,
It was
It's
like
like-
the final phase. or
right,
something.
well, it was not final phase, but it was to
Yeah.
build it,
That-
they had bought the kit. And then I think you guys, this council or the very end of the last council, I
We were
had to
talking
vote.
about the roof and the paint color or something.
We voted on paint color and roof slope, and we voted to award
Right,
the
so to
contract
actually build
for,
it,
yeah.
to build it.
We
That's as
voted on,
far
the
as
con-
you
we voted
guys
on
got.
awarding the
But
contract.
before this council came on, the previous council, it went through and we were told specifically that they would fit on the new building. And that's why we would buy them now.
And I think my understanding of that is that they would have fit on the new building as it was originally designed, but then the design changed several times before it was actually completed.
When did that change? Because this council, we did not vote on changing. We never talked about changing door size for any reason. That is
Yeah.
not something that has come across this council or the engineering committee.
Yeah,
It
I
was the
don't,
paint of the
I
roof,
don't know.
the color, or the kind of paint and the slope of the roof were the 2 things.
And wasn't it
Stuff.
thickness of the metal?
Yeah, that about the roof thing, yeah.
I can go back to
Nothing
the
about
minutes
the
and
doors.
see. Yeah, but I'm not aware.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, how much are these doors gonna cost us?
Close to $200,000.
All right, well, maybe it's time to really look to see whether there's some malfeasance here or whatever you would call it. Because that's a lot for us to absorb, because we're finding every time we turn around right now.
Right. The intent of the Public Works building was to save money on the equipment and protecting the equipment. And our current facility is just, it's old and it's drafty and it's not
Yeah,
probably up to code. But now, the depreciation on the equipment, we could buy new equipment in some cases versus, the cost now of the additional building or the changes to the building. Okay, so I think as an action item on this one, let's put it on the agenda for the engineering meeting.
Yep.
And then report back to council what we find relative to everything we're talking about today should.
And what are we
Gotcha.
asking the engineers to help uncover? Do a
What-
like recap of the different iterations and the decisions
Where-
that were made at what point and why?
And who approved them?
Because that probably goes back about 4 years,
No,
right? 3
no,
years?
probably
How-
not,
How long is that back?
because the doors, okay, we're coming into 2 years here. I think the doors probably less than 4 years were approved, maybe definitely less than 4 years. So if the changes were made after they assured us that these doors would fit on the other building, then the changes got made after we approved the purchase. So we can do some of our own research going back to our own minutes and then look to see who and what changed and who approved it without paying any attention to the fact that those doors were not going to fit. I mean, at the end of the day, we may find that it's our own fault, but we really need to have an answer to this one.
I will look into all those.
And the 640, that's not the entire amount of money for this. We've already put money into that.
Oh,
we've
but
already-
way more than
That's
that. if it could.
640,000 still yet remaining on
Oh,
a building that we did not even have a contractor build the entire thing. We only had them build a shell of a building so that we could do the rest of the work ourselves to save money.
There was significant expense as far as my understanding is concerned. Again, not having looked at the plans and drawings, just understanding, some of the things that have happened, but there was a significant expense in moving it where it was moved to.
Yeah, that
because-
too.
Because they had to regrade the land, create a retention pond and a few other things. So,
Oh, and not to mention the fact that part of it's in another
It's
municipality.
in another borough.
Yes,
yeah,
but I mean,
Roslyn Farms.
Let's not do that again.
Yeah,
yeah, let's not. But,
yeah.
yeah, no, at some point, we really need to see, and everyone here needs to see what this debacle is costing us.
Mhm.
And we've got to figure something out because this is ridiculous.
I think it'd be good, Larry just walked in too,
Yeah.
but as a project, somebody that coming in from the outside to take a look at it and say, what was the history, what happened, what are the decisions made, and where are we today?
Yeah, we are in the process. As a matter of fact, Larry just requested the plans for all of that information. So we are in the process of digging into that, and I'll dig into the minutes and see when the choices were made. I'm not aware. I talked to Dave, and I know Dave was Dave Killen, the Public Works foreman, was confused by why it got changed as well. He thought that they were going to continue with the 12-foot doors, and then at some point it got switched and the building got bigger and some other things changed. So, yep,
Yes.
I will figure that out. Great.
I remember the discussions about it getting bigger, but I do not recall any discussion in public that the height of the doors were changing and it would affect the fact that we couldn't use the ones we just bought.
Okay. We only have a few minutes left here, 5 minutes. No, that's okay. Those are the only two topics that I was going to go over, and clearly I need to, I'll update both of these slides and bring them to the next meeting to make them clearer, so that you'll understand the costs a little bit better. I can go through the engineering costs very quickly. The Crafton streetscaping at $10,000, that is just we have $130,000 grant or $120,000 grant from the Pennsylvania that was through Dan Deasy's office for additional streetscaping, and that is another discussion we need to have at the engineering meeting as to what we're going to use that for. We do have the availability to use it for charging stations, for plants and vegetation on the streetscaping and lighting. And we're continuing to look onto the lighting issue to see if there's adjustments we can make. But we should talk about that at the next engineering meeting to find out where we need to focus that grant funding. But there will be some additional engineering costs budgeted for that. The Green Light Go, we do have, we secured grant money for a new signal at Steuben and Linden. However, other than setting it up for bid prep, I've asked them to hold on this, seeing that might be selling that property at the corner there And there may be some changes to the traffic patterns there. So I would hate for us to use grant money to buy a brand new light and then have it changed a few years later when a company comes in and maybe changes the traffic patterns at that corner. So, yeah.
I want to just put a mark on that, and we can consider it as council and, see if there are residents that have a say as well. But that is a pretty major intersection in the borough. And if the property sells, it will be a little while before that happens and it's finalized and agreements are all in place. We are all very aware of the fact that the Linden site involves both the borough and the school district. And then more time again until something actually happens on it. So we could be looking at easily a few years, even if something moves quickly to an agreement. And in the meantime, we have residents driving on that on a regular basis. So I would just say that we should not toss that out as a potential intersection to do an upgraded traffic light if that's what's needed now.
Yeah.
We have no idea what may change in the next few years, but if something does change, we can have that be something that, if the site sells and a developer is doing something, they would be on the hook to make the upgrades necessary.
Yep. That sounds good. I basically was waiting just to make sure that there were no issues like that, but yep. We do have, and then moving on, we have $50,000 more budgeted for the engineering on the Public Works building, and $30,000 on the stairs, $100,000 on Broadhead separation project. We did receive the trail feasibility study money, and we're going to be putting out an RFP to a trail focused development company to do that planning and work. And then we have $35,000 less for the pool house, and we vaguely estimated $20,000 for the Station Street repair. And with that, I think we were basically right at time to start the actual meeting, the council meeting. So with that, I will turn this off, stop sharing.